Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. We do this show each and every single Monday, so if you like that, hopefully you'll stick around. We run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. We go into fan questions, and we play the clip of the week that I think is important to the franchise. And we do have a clip this week. Last week we didn't have a clip, so yeah. There's a lot to talk about in today's episode. You know, this is game week. This is the first podcast of the year, which will, is leading up to the game. Usually we preview the game, but this week's episode, I don't think we're going to have enough time. You guys have asked a record. I think the record might be 65 questions on this in this channel, but you guys have asked 47 questions this week, which is like double the amount it usually is. So that's a lot, and we barely ever get those. So we're not going to preview the game this week. If we have time, we will, but there's a lot to talk about. That a lot has happened over the last week with this franchise. This franchise looks vastly different than it did a week ago. So this first news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins to start Ryan Fitzpatrick for Week 1 against the Baltimore Ravens. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins quarterback controversy is over for now. Ryan Fitzpatrick will be the club's Week 1 starter. Brian Flores has announced. After a thorough evaluation of OTA's training camp games practice, we felt... This is what Brian Flores said. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm going a little too fast. So this is a quote from Brian Flores. He said, quote, "After a thorough evaluation of OTA's training camp and games practice, we felt this was the best move for the team going into the season. Ryan has done a really good job from a leadership standpoint, from an execution standpoint, and we feel that it's the best move for the team." Fitzpatrick, 36, has edged out Rosen, a 22-year-old who was taken 10th overall just 1 year ago. While Rosen had his preseason moments, Flores says he's electing for Fitzpatrick's experience. Rosen, meanwhile, is playing the part of a good soldier. And we're not going to say what he said because that's going to be the clip of the week this week. We'll get into that later of what Rosen thought about being informed that he will not be the starter for the team Week 1. So, basically... I have been and I've been the only one, and I was wrong, but I thought Rosen would start. I really, really did think that, and, he got better as the year went on. At the end of training camp, he was the better quarterback. He had the better practices, especially the last week he did. Then that kind of carried into preseason. He got better with each game. His last game was his best. He outplayed Fitzpatrick. Now, granted, be fair, Fitzpatrick took less snaps, but there were times where Fitzpatrick ran with the twos against the Buccaneers, the same team that Rosen ran with, and he did not look as good. Now, that could be for a variety of different reasons that you could bring up, like how protection was bad, but protection was bad for both players when they ran with the twos. So, when you look at the overall body of work, and you look at the circumstances that the Dolphins find themselves in, it's very hard to make an argument for either one of them to start because you can put huge holes in both arguments. So it's very difficult. I don't think there's a right or wrong reason here, to be honest with you. I think Rosen should start. I think he's earned it. But... and it's very a lot of people are misinformed about the situation. They're like, well, if Rosen couldn't be out Fitzpatrick, then why is he I don't think that's the reason Rosen's not starting. I think it is, even the quote, he said it's experience. That doesn't mean that, in my opinion, we all saw a preseason. We all read the reports for the last week of training camp, even some of the second to last week, really. Rosen played better, and he was the better quarterback for the last, few weeks now, so... I don't think it comes down. I don't think it's based off of performance. At least what all of our eyes have seen, Rosen has been the better quarterback. But, so I think the one thing I will say about the whole situation that is important, I don't think just because Ryan Fitzpatrick's starting that he beat him out. I don't think that. The stuff from what I have seen, Rosen did not get beat out by Fitzpatrick. And look at it this way, too. Every time Rosen got, played, he did well. Like, he played very well. So, and again, like I said, he got better with each game. One thing I will say, just as a comparison, And I think the biggest critique really is obviously the Jaguars game. When you look at the Jaguars game, when Fitzpatrick ran with the ones, granted Josh Allen was beating up on Jesse Davis the entire game. It was ugly, but Fitzpatrick missed throws. Like, he missed Preston Williams for a touchdown. Like, those are the kinds of things that if Rosen started that game, he would have hit Preston for that against Jalen. So I don't know. I think, in my opinion, that Rosen was the better quarterback. But what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? And I could be biased on that because I haven't. It's of my opinion that he should have, been the starter. But I mean, really, it's interesting, man. It's a really interesting situation because, granted, like, to be fair, I mean, Fitzpatrick was the better quarterback early on, but like I said, I don't think it's been the case recently, for sure. So it is what it is. I disagree with the decision. I would have started Rosen, but I don't know. We're gonna get into some other stuff that pertains to this situation as well, but it is what it is, man. What are you gonna do? We're gonna see Fitzpatrick against the Ravens defense, and we all know how Fitzpatrick plays. He's a great guy. He's a fun dude, but at the end of the day, we're all gonna watch Sunday football. And unless he completely changes his career over the last 15 years, it is what it is, dude. It is what it is. I'm not saying Rosen would have, especially with the way the offensive line is right now, I'm not saying that Rosen is going to, miraculously rally this team to more wins, but at least you don't know what you have in him. He's progressing in the right direction. He showed really good signs for the future. I just don't understand the decision. All right. Let's move on to the next news story. Because there's a lot. There is a lot. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Vikings trade Danny Isidora. There's no A in there. To Dolphins. I hope that's how you say his name. We have yet another trade involving an offensive lineman. Danny has been traded to the Dolphins from the Vikings. The Vikings will get a 7th-round pick from the Dolphins. It's a decent takeaway for a player who is highly unlikely to make the final cut. In the past, the Vikings have struggled, with their interior offensive line. Yeah, I think he's just good depth, at the end of the day. See what he's got, maybe, see what happens with him. The Dolphins have traded for another interior offensive lineman. The Colts trade offensive lineman Evan Boehm to the Dolphins. The Dolphins are adding another interior offensive lineman only a couple hours after trading for Danny Isidora, however you say his name. Now making a deal with the Indianapolis Colts to acquire guard/center Evan Boehm. The Colts get a conditional pick in the 2020 draft. Boehm was originally drafted by the Cardinals in the 4th round in 2016. He was waived just prior to last season and ended up latching on with the Colts. He's appeared in 11 games for Indy, making 4 starts when normal center Ryan Kelly went down with an injury. In 2017, he started 8 games at guard at Arizona. So he has a decent amount of starting experience. So again, just more depth there. Nothing to really talk about. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors again. The Dolphins have cut Tate Cardine. I can't remember. Cannot remember say his last name. They have cut Tank. Tank's tenure with the Dolphins has ended after 4 preseason games. NFL.com Tom Pelissero reports that Miami has released the veteran defensive end. While the 29-year-old ended up sitting out most of the 2018 season, it sounded like the Dolphins had high hopes for him. After joining the team in February, Tank started the first 3 preseason games for Miami, but he was limited to only a single tackle during those appearances. With the Dolphins in the midst of a rebuild, the organization decided to ultimately let go of him and go the younger route. This is super surprising news. He didn't play bad in preseason. He looked good. Nate Orchard was rumored to be cut before the Saints game, and I think the report was Brian Flores told him that he wants to see something out of him this game to keep him around. So the fact that Nate was that close to being let go, after he had a good preseason up to that point, he had 4 sacks, but it's just an interesting choice. I really don't. I mean, it is what it is. I don't have a strong opinion on this, other than the fact that it's a little surprising, I would say. I don't think it's going to hurt the team in any way, drastically or anything like that. But yeah, it's a little surprising, that's for sure. I think a lot of us would, if we made the 53-man roster before the cuts, we would have at least thought that he would have made the roster, but he didn't. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins have cut Dwayne Allen. The Dolphins have reached an injury settlement with the tight end Dwayne Allen and released cornerback Torrey McTider, a source tells ESPN.com Adam Schefter. Allen was unable to stay healthy or produce in camp, leading to his late August release. This is what Dwayne had to say about being cut. He said, quote, "They got younger guys they want to invest more time in. They decided to let me go, and I appreciate the opportunity that they gave me. There are teams calling, but we will see. I had an off-season knee injury that I need to heal up from." Yeah, he was not. I mean, I think, I don't know if we reported on this last week, but he was not. There was a lot of reports that he wouldn't make it out of the preseason and into the regular season. He hadn't looked good all year. He's never been. I mean, for one season in his career, he had one good receiving year. Other than that, he's pretty much been, a blocker. And he wasn't doing that well. He was called for 2 holding penalties in preseason. He just didn't look very good. And yeah, this doesn't surprise me at all. And there's a lot of really good tight ends, especially with Chris Myrick. I think that's his name. Hopefully I don't forget it. The undrafted rookie out of Temple, I believe. That could be wrong, but he had a really good last preseason game, and I do think he made the final cut. You got Durham Smythe, you got obviously Mike Gesicki, Nick O'Leary. So there's a lot of depth there still, and a lot of upside with some of those players as well. So this doesn't surprise me that this happened. All right, let's see here. We might get to the big news. Let's see here. We'll start with this, and then we'll get into the big news because this is less big news. Well, yeah, we'll start with these 2 news stories. Okay, the Dolphins have traded, this comes from Pro Football Rumors, the Dolphins have traded longtime linebacker Kiko Alonso to the Saints. The Dolphins aren't cutting Kiko Alonso after all. We heard yesterday that Miami was releasing Alonso, which suggested the club's efforts to trade him have been fruitless. However, Tom Pelissero of NFL Network reports that the Fins are trading Alonso to the Saints. For Alonso, this is good news. Let's see here. What do we get for compensation? This is what I'm trying to look for. Oh, okay, here we go. New Orleans, it's a player-to-player trade, actually. The New Orleans is sending linebacker Vince Beagle to us in exchange for Kiko Alonso. So, yeah, there you go. I don't really know much about Vince. I'm very confused because the Saints linebackers actually played well against us in preseason. But I'm trying to remember if I'm getting my guys mixed up. But it's another young guy. We'll see what he can do. Let's see. He's bounced around the league a little bit. Played college football at Wisconsin. Played for the Packers. Played for the Saints. Now he plays for us. I think he was drafted in 2017. So yeah. Not really much there. We'll see what happens with him. But yeah, what do I think about the trade? It's another one that was the writing on the wall. This was, some people might look at this and think it's just another, I guess, for lack of a better term, tank move or whatever the heck you want to call it. But all the younger players outplayed him. So like Sam McGuavin looked really good in preseason against other ones, and that was a huge factor in this, I would assume. Even though Kiko Alonso did request a trade, he was going to be a backup anyway. So it was time to move on. We were all wondering how he would fit in this scheme, and now we know. So yeah, all the younger guys have played better than him. Sam and Jerome look to be like one heck of a tandem. And even Raekwon McMillan seems to be kind of a little on shaky ground right now. We'll see what he can do when he comes back healthy. But yeah, this trade makes a lot of sense for both parties, and I don't think it hurts the team at all because of what Sam has been able to do and Jerome Baker and how they will be using the scheme. So he was kind of an odd man out in this situation. All right, let's get into some more minor news, and then we'll get into the big news story. The Dolphins are hosting wide receiver Eli Rogers. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. One of the biggest names the Steelers cut as they trimmed their 53-man roster down yesterday was receiver Eli Rogers. Rogers entered the league as an undrafted free agent in 2015 and had been with Pittsburgh ever since. It looked like the Louisville product might land on his feet pretty quickly, as he already had a visit with the Dolphins earlier today. A source told Ian Rappaport of NFL Network, after spending his entire rookie season on injury reserve, Rogers had a breakout 2016 campaign, and he earned Ben Roethlisberger's trust and ended up starting 8 games, catching 48 passes for 594 yards and 3 touchdowns. He wasn't nearly as productive in 2017, although he still had a role, but he tore his ACL the playoffs that year. He struggled to make it back from injury and ended up appearing in only 3 games last year. In those 3 games, he caught 12 passes for 79 yards. The Steelers re-signed him to a 2-year deal in March, but he was unable to crack Pittsburgh's deep receiver core. The Dolphins are entering a full-blown rebuild and just traded away Kenny Stills, so perhaps Rodgers will find a new home in Miami. I mean, there's... I don't see him. He's a good player, but especially if he comes back healthy. I don't know. There's a lot of really good, talented guys at the receiver group, so I don't understand. Does it add depth? Not really. We've kept a lot of receivers on this team. We cut Isaiah Ford and Bryce Butler, which was surprising, but. Yeah, I just don't see him, even if he was signed to the team, in the rotation. So, yeah, let's get into the big news story, because this is what we're here, 17 minutes into the show. We got through all the other news. Let's get into the big news story. Let's see if I can't find it. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Texans acquire Laremy Tunsil and Kenny Stills in a trade from the Dolphins. The Texans are going full-edge makeover on Saturday. Despite the Dolphins not being the team to land Jadeveon Clowney, they are finalizing a deal to send Laremy Tunsil to Houston. Adam Schefter of ESPN.com tweets, "This is a blockbuster trade. Kenny Stills will also head to Houston for a package of picks." And NFL.com's Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero and Mike Garafolo on Twitter, one of those will be a first-rounder. In fact, 2 of those picks will be first-rounders. The Texans are sending 2 first-round picks and a second-rounder to the Dolphins for Tunsil and Stills. The NFL.com trio adds on from Twitter, "This is a massive return for the Dolphins now." We get it. The full details of the picks exchanging hands as follows, courtesy of Albert Breer of SportsIllustrated.com. Miami will get 2 first-round picks, in one in 2020 and in one in 2021, and a second-rounder in 2021. The Texans will get a 2020 fourth-rounder as well as a 2021 sixth-rounder back from the Dolphins. Additionally, the Dolphins will receive 2 players from the Texans as well. Tackle Julian Davenport and special teamer Jonathan Batamosi will head to Miami. Rappaport tweets, "Davenport, a 2017 fourth-round pick, started 50 games for the Texans last year." There you go. So we get 2. This is a huge deal. So, I mean, there's so many angles you could look at this at. There's a lot of different ways to look at this trade. First of all, if you look at it from the acceptance of that this team isn't trying to win games this year, and you look at this for the future, this is one heck of a deal. It's one heck of a deal. You look at the Khalil Mack trade, you look at the Odell Beckham trade, those are 2 future Hall of Famers, and then you look at this trade, we were able to get 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick for Laremy Tunsil and Kenny Stills. That's not bad. I mean, anybody would probably do that in the league. He is one of the best tackles in the league. He's not just one of the best young tackles. He is one of the best tackles in the National Football League. Should have went to the Pro Bowl last year. And it's hard to find a player like that to protect your blind side. It really, 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 really is. Especially a player so young. Obviously, he was going in, he was going to have to be extended soon, but that would have been a problem for the Dolphins. So you're going to have to replace a very good player that you didn't need to trade away. And you already had a lot of picks, so there's a lot of different ways to look at this trade. When you see the compensation that you got from Tunsil, it's really good. It's a really, really, really good compensation. But does it help the team now? No, it doesn't. It makes the team a lot worse. I said, I don't know, I think it was last week or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, that if the Dolphins did trade Laremy Tunsil, I think someone asked the question, then we would have zero chance this upcoming season. And it ain't looking good, guys. The sun's getting real low. Let's just point it that way. I don't know who's going to block. The offensive line without Laremy wasn't looking too hot. Now without him, the blind side is pretty much wide open. I don't know how the Dolphins are going to pass protect this year. I don't think it's going to be as bad as 2013, just because I don't think the coaching staff is as as stupid as that coaching staff was with Joe Philbin. I don't think it's going to be that bad, but I don't think it's going to be good. It's going to be hard to pass the football with this offensive line. It's going to be hard to run the ball with this offensive line. It's just going to be tough sledding. It's going to be really hard to, gain consistent yards. So it's going to be really tough on offense. It's going to be really, really, really tough. I just don't see us consistently being productive on that side of the ball with the way the lineup is looking right now. So, yeah, the sun's getting real low, ladies and gentlemen. It's not looking too hot for this season, unfortunately. I guess if you're a guy that thought this team had no chance of winning anyway, this trade is amazing. But if you were like me, where I thought this team actually had a chance to be relatively competitive this year, that's pretty much gone now. I really don't see how, like I just said, when you have a bad offensive line, it's hard to consistently play offense, especially across the board. The offensive line isn't looking very good. The one thing I will say, it's a very young offensive line, especially with the two guard positions. Jesse Davis still there at right tackle. He's a solid player. Davenport coming over the Texans has a lot of experience at the tackle position. Has played games, not at a high level by no means, but he has experience. He's young. We have a good coaching staff. Hopefully there's something there. We have one of the best offensive line coaches in the league. Hopefully there's something in him that maybe we can get out of him, and maybe he plays well. But I think the only hope this team has is the coaching staff on the offensive line. They have one of the best offensive line coaches in the league. If the ship does get right, which I don't, you can have the best coaching staff you want, but when the coverage is dry, the coverage is dry, ladies and gentlemen. There's just nothing really to work with. So, long term, this is a great thing. I really do believe that. Short term, not really. It just makes the team a whole lot worse. I don't know how else to really put it. I guess the argument against the trade, even long term, would be the fact that first of all, you have to nail your picks. You can't get rid of talent and not replace the talent. And that's something that they're going to have to do. They're going to have to pull a Herschel Walker at the Dallas Cowboys. You're going to have a big draft. With the amount of picks we already have before this trade happened, and now with this trade, we're going to have to nail it. And I trust Chris Greer. He's done a good job so far, and I trust him to get it done. So we'll see. I do believe the Dolphins will, come out on top in the long run. I do believe in this organization. I do believe in this coaching staff. I do believe in this regime to get it done. I really, really, really do. So far, everything that we've witnessed tells me nothing but good things. So yeah, but this trade really, I think it's a wait and see thing more than anything. I don't really think you can judge it yet. I see a lot of people out there, why would you trade one of the best young tackles in the league for 2 first-round picks? Because it's hard to replace that position. Now, that's not necessarily true. I don't think that's necessarily true at all, actually. There's been a lot of teams in the league that don't have one of the best, let's just say, 5 or 3 tackles in the league, and other than the Eagles, I would say, and made it to the Super Bowl and won. When you look at all the top teams, I mean, the Patriots had Nate Solder, but they won the Super Bowl without him last year. So you can definitely find talent, especially in free agency, with all the cap space that we have, and in the draft, you can find a tackle. It's not that difficult. I think that's been a little bit exaggerated. I'm not saying he's going to be a Hall of Famer or anything like that, but he's going to be a good player. It's not that difficult. It's not as hard as a quarterback. That's for dang sure. So we'll figure it out. I don't think it's going to be that difficult to. It's not going to be like we're going to go with the 10-year drought of not having a tackle like we did, let's say, with like Dan Marino or something like that. I think it's just it's a tad exaggerated. The fact, that's hard. I'm not saying it's easy to, especially drafting tackles. Yeah, that's not, I would say easy, but it's not as hard as everybody's making it out to be if you do it the right way. I mean, if you look at the Titans with Jake Coughlin and Taylor Lewan, the Lions did it with Taylor Decker. The Ravens with Ronnie Stanley, the 49ers with Mike McGlinchey, the Raiders with Colton Miller. All of those players have looked good, and that's 5 examples recently of good linemen being drafted. The Patriots with Isaiah Wynn, who's looked good in preseason. So there's a lot of examples of teams. And that's 6 tackles that are good players. So that's been drafted recently. So it's not that difficult. I feel like I think it's very, very exaggerated, and we'll see what happens. I mean, even this recent draft with Cody Ford, Greg Little, there's a lot of tackles. The guy from Florida, I think it was Jawan Taylor, right? I don't think it's as hard as people are making out to seem, at least. So, yeah, long term, it's a great deal. Short term, not really. It's not a good deal. I mean, like I said, depending on what you thought of this team is really how you're going to take this trade. Look at it this way. First of all, this is the last thing I'll say. And we already said that the Dolphins, I mean, for this to be a great trade, you have to nail those picks. But the Texans, I don't think, are a good football team, as good as everybody thinks they are. Their offensive line is still not that great. Their defense got a lot, worse. You can't say it got better. And their division isn't very good, but I think the Titans are a better football team. So if you look at it from the Texas perspective, it really doesn't make any dang sense, to be honest with you. I would never trade 2 first-round picks for a tackle unless I'm going to win a Super Bowl, and I really do believe I do. But then you make the roster worse by trading away one of your big pieces on defense. I don't understand that. If you're a Texans fan, this is a weird trade. I don't think you're very happy about it, to be quite honest. They just traded away Dwayne Brown to the Seahawks. I mean, I don't know what that franchise is doing. I really don't care. But I think this is a wait-and-see thing at best. How does this affect the team now? Not very good, guys. I mean, it's just not very good. Like I said, the cupboard's real dry. It is what it is. What are you going to do? And you can't win a lot of games in the National Football League if your line of scrimmage is below par. Just put it that way. We've witnessed it over the last 3 years. I mean, it's just really tough to win in the league when you can't run the ball and you're constantly in 3rd and long. It's really hard. But we'll see. And you know what? Here's what I will say: if there's a glimmer, and I mean a dang glimmer, I mean literally a sparkle in the sky in the most cheesy movie you've ever seen in your life. Like, it's probably the most unrealistic thing ever. It's like Remember the Titans or something like that. This football team miraculously with all these, people, this team, like, nobody thought they could do it, all this other stuff. Kevin Costner is looking down from the sky and he's telling us to believe, all this other stuff. The thing that this team might be better than even I think it will be is the coaching staff. It's a smart coaching staff. It's a successful coaching staff in the past. They know what they're doing. When you look at Chad's offense, I do believe in that offense. He recognizes the personnel that they have. They know how to run the offense as efficiently as they possibly can with what they have. They have weapons on the receiving core. They have good running backs. They have good tight ends. They have a good quarterback. The offensive line is... it is what it is. They can... The one hope that this team does have is this coaching staff. And they're not going to walk this team out there and not try to cover up for the lack of talent there. So if this team has any hope on offense, it will be that the coaching staff understands and will try to game. And I really can't imagine that this doesn't affect the game plan for the Ravens, because this happened though while they are preparing for the Ravens. So we'll see how that affects this game, but I think if there is any glimmer of hope, that it would be that this coaching staff is intelligent and knows what it's doing. It's like I just said, it's not going to just, not understand the weaknesses of the team. It's going to do everything it can to mask those weaknesses and be as successful as it possibly can. Brian Flores has said many times, this scheme adapts to the personnel that it's here. Chad O'Shea has said it, that we call plays, we develop the talent, we adapt to what we have. And Chad has even said that this is one of the best receiver corps he's ever coached. So, like he said, he's really excited for this receiver corps. There is talent on the offense. It's just the offensive line it's got to block, and I don't think it's gonna be able to block. So, we'll see what happens. But if there's one hope, it's the coaching staff. All right, so. But buckle your chin straps, ladies and gentlemen, because this might be a dang bumpy ride. Let's just put it that way. I'm excited for football, though. Regardless, I can't wait for Week 1. I'm still excited for Week 1. Am I a sick psychopath? Probably. I can't imagine you guys not being excited for Week 1, though. Even though this trade happened, and the team's not looking too hot, at least on, offense. Because I do believe the defense will be good. I honest to God, do believe that. The linebackers are looking awesome. The secondary's killer. The defensive line is looking better than I thought it would be. At least Charles Harris is looking better. Nate Orchard looked good. And I do believe in this scheme. And I do believe to have this scheme be successful at a high level, that your secondary has to be good. And that's one thing that the Dolphins do have on this team, is their secondary is really, really good. So I'm excited for the defense. The offense looks like a crapping train wreck right now, but we'll see what happens. All right. Let's get into the clip of the week. And I wish we had some kind of, sound effect. This is what Josh Rosen had to say after being named the backup to Ryan Fitzpatrick.
He told me that I've made a lot of really good, steady upward progress, and I think it's only time that this team is mine. But until then, I'm going to be as supportive of the backup as I can, and like I said, push him every single day.
I hope you guys heard that, because he talks like Kermit the Frog. Like, we need to hear you, Josh. Speak up a little bit. He always talks like he's upset about something, by the way. It's like, he's got a very low voice. Anyway, the point is, very interesting stuff to hear from Josh. Very confident in himself, which you like. I love that he recognizes that he is getting better, because he is. We all saw that. I like the confidence. And yeah, I do believe this team will be his eventually. I really do like Josh Rosen. I've said this a million times, but I liked it before he got here. I like him now. I think he has a very good chance to be in the future of the franchise. But yeah, him saying that, eventually I do think this team will be mine, I think he's being very candid, and I like that. Blaine Gabbert probably would have got out there and said, that's what the team wanted. And it's like, oh, okay, buddy. He's being honest. Alright, let's look into the fan Q&A. And you guys are very. I would expect nothing less, especially after this week. 47 questions. Give yourself a round of applause. A little bit of a clap here, a little bit of a clap there, a little slap on the cheek here, a little slap on the cheek there. It's a lot of questions and a lot to talk about. So this first question comes from Lucas Casey. He says, "How do we go 1-0 this week versus the Ravens? And will we be 1-0, by the way?" How do we go 1-0? Find a way to block, because right now we couldn't block a paper bag in the wind. The way the team's looking, we got to find a way to block. We got to not just pass block, but run block, because this defense, if we get in third and long situations, I'm not liking our chances with the way the scheme is ran, especially with their blitzes. And their safety play, is pretty dang good as well. They have Earl Thomas back there, so you don't want to be good, stuck in third and long the entire game. You're not going to be very successful. I would say that the way the Dolphins win this game is play. They can't turn the ball over at all, like not one time, and they have to play really good defense. That's the only way that the Dolphins would win that game. We're at home, so there's there at least there's that, and I feel like the defense will play well, but you just can't turn the ball over. You got to be able to run the ball. Hopefully, our conditioning will play a factor, because it is very hard to play in Miami in September. According to former players, it's one of the hardest things to do. So, at least we have home field advantage. I would say the way the Dolphins win it is don't turn the ball over, play good defense, and hopefully having home field advantage does something. I think that's how the Dolphins will win the game. They have to play it close to the vest. Your quarterback can't play stupid, and you have to play good defense. So, we'll see what happens. And again, like I said, somehow we got to figure out how to block. This next question comes from JFG. He asks, "Is there any other player that would be good to trade for Skaggs?" I don't really. No, not really. I couldn't see anything. There's no offensive lineman out there that any team would trade right now, especially with the 53-man roster. Offensive linemen are too valuable, so. If there was an offensive lineman that the Dolphins could acquire, it would be someone like Trent Williams, but that's not going to happen. So, I think the only one that I could see, the only one that's up there for trade is, I would assume, Trent Williams, because he's holding out and he doesn't want to play for the Redskins. So, yeah, that's the only one I could see happening. JFG. This next question comes from Will. Will asks, "Why don't the Texans try and trade for Trent Williams and trade Clowney to us for a 3 and a 5?" I'm assuming this happened before the trade. Why don't the Texans try and trade for Trent Williams? Well, apparently Trent Williams is just not up for trade, according to the Redskins. So that's why. This next question comes from JFG. He says, "Do you think that Dieter will become a Pro Bowl guard?" He played he had very good games in the preseason. So did Shaq. Especially for a young player. I think his highest grade from Pro Football Focus was a 93.9. And I don't put too much stock into those grades, especially when it comes to linemen. I just don't like the way they grade the linemen, because I feel like the eye test is a way better way to evaluate, especially linemen. But yeah, if you put a lot of stock into that, there you go. But I feel like he's played well in preseason. He's definitely trending in the right direction. I will say that. This next question comes from SM. He says, "What is your over/under for sacks in Game 1? I'm guessing Fitzpatrick will get sacked 7 times and retire." Guys, it is not looking good. Oh man, yeah. What is my over and under for sacks? I don't know. I wouldn't like to say that against my own team, if that makes any sense. I know that's like such a fan thing to say, but I don't know. There's still something inside of me that says we can win. Until I see us lose, that's just the way I am. But I'm not gonna be an idiot and tell you that this team, especially on offense, is gonna be viable, because right now I just don't see it, and I would have to see it to believe it. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, it could get ugly if we can't run the ball, and if we can't pick up early down. Like, if we can't pick early down yardage up, it's gonna get ugly. We just can't turn the ball over, or it's gonna get really ugly. This next question comes from D-Mac. D-Mac asks, do you think we should look into signing Corn Elder since he was cut? No, Corn Elder is not a very good player. My brother's a Panthers fan, so and don't even ask how that works. Cause he just is. But Corn Elder. I've seen a lot of Corn Elder. Is my point. He played very bad last year. He didn't play very well in preseason, so no, I don't think the Dolphins should sign him. The next question comes from Mark. Mark asks, now that we've given up Tunsil, Stills, and Alonso, what will our record be at the end of the year? I don't predict records. I never have. But it's not looking good. It's the best way I can describe it. It's just, you got to be able to block in this league. If you can't block anybody, then you can't play offense. So, it takes all 11 positions on the field, and there's 5 linemen, so that's a lot out of the 11 that are on the field, and they're probably the second most important. So, if not the most important. So yeah, I mean, it's not looking great. This next question comes from Will. Thoughts on signing Sua Cravens or any defensive ends, at least for depth reasons? Yeah, because that is Cravens' interesting career. I don't think the Dolphins need Sua Cravens. I don't really know why they would want him. There's already good enough depth and good enough DBs out that we have. So I don't. That move just doesn't make any sense really. So I don't like that. I don't know. I just don't see that happening. And DNs for depth. I mean, Shakai Polite, I think is how you say his name, the defensive end from Florida, the 3rd round pick, who was projected to go round. A lot of people had us taking him. He was cut from the Jets. I don't know if he's been picked up yet. There's some depth there that they could add. I don't know if I know they've added a couple of defensive ends already from waiver wire. So yeah, I just can't remember their names right now. So they have technically done that. This next question comes from SM. He says, "Go over the O-line and D-line, please." The OT the OT stirrup is gone. The defensive end tank is gone, along with Hendricks. Is Isaiah Prince starting along with defensive end Ledbetter? Okay, so this is actually a great question. I would assume Davenport at some point is going to play. He has a lot of starting experience. He's not the greatest in the world, but I would assume that's what the Dolphins would do. I would assume that's what the Dolphins are going to do. But just to be sure, I'll look it up for you. But in terms of the defensive lineman, the young defensive lineman, Dwayne Hendricks is on the practice squad. Ledbetter had a really good preseason. I liked a lot. I mean, he all around, he looked really, really good. The undrafted rookie. So there's a lot of promise there. When you look at Nate Orchard, who had a really good preseason with the 4 sacks that he had, he's a former high round pick. Hopefully he has a resurgence here in Miami. So yeah, and if the Dolphins could somehow bring some of that New England magic over here and turn players that didn't have successful careers with other teams, and then they come here and have successful careers, that would be great. I'm trying to pull up the 53-man roster here just to see if there's any updates to it in terms of tackles, and I'm taking way too much time to do this. Let's see here. I mean, it's looking like Davenport is going to be... I would assume he's going to start. I don't know. Maybe Isaiah Prince. I don't see that happening, though. I would assume Davenport, to answer your question. I could be wrong about that. But yeah, you're right. Stirrup is gone. So, yeah, I would assume Davenport. But yeah, the D lineman actually, Ledbetter, the fact that you bring up Ledbetter, I'm excited for him. He looked really good in preseason. Dwayne is still in the practice squad, so at least, because he had a good preseason, at least he got rewarded for it. Nate Orchard, Charles Harris. The interior is still very talented when you look at, Akeem Spence is gone, which is surprising, but Vince Taylor, Devon Godshaw, and Christian Wilkins, all very, very, very talented players. So the interior I'm not worried about. It's really just the edges. And, when you look, Nate Orchard, hopefully he can continue on the pace that he's on. And Charles Harris, hopefully he can develop into what we thought he could be with the first-round pick. That's the best preview I got for you. And I may have accidentally just said fourth-round pick. I meant first-round pick. This next question comes from SM. He says, GM Skaggs, why not trade 2/3 to Washington for Trent Williams, put Davenport at right tackle and Williams at left? Would we really... left, would we be ready to roll, correct? I'd probably keep Jesse at right, and then if I did trade for Trent, yeah, of course I would trade 2 third-round picks for Trent Williams. 1,000%. It's just the Redskins aren't, willing to do that, so it is what it is. And especially since Laremy went for that at that much, the tackle market probably, especially for trades, probably, unless the leverage is on the other foot, because if he legit won't play for them, they have to get something for him. So yeah, maybe I think leverage is definitely different in that situation. So maybe we could get him for 2 third-round picks, but I just don't see the Redskins doing it. But yeah, I would definitely do it for 2/3. This next question comes from SM. SM asks, Houston Texans in the Super Bowl in our stadium. Thoughts? Not a chance. Not a chance. That team is... I don't even think that team's going to win their division. If I had to bet who's going to win their division, it would be the Titans. This next question comes from Messi. Messi asks, Skaggs... or Psy. Skaggs, can anyone not say we're not taking after trading Laremy Tunsil? Yeah, I mean, that would be tough to say that we're not tanking. I hate the word tanking, but yeah, it would be tough. I'm not going to say that we're tanking, but it's definitely going to be tough to win games. I'll put it that way. This next question comes from JFG. He says, are there any waiver wire targets that you're interested in us picking up? I would say Ja'Kai Polite would be the one that I saw that is probably is the most interesting. I could Google that for you guys really quick, because I don't even know if he's been picked up yet. But it's a very interesting prospect. Wow, Ja'Kai Polite was fined more than $100,000 during his time with it, so he's obviously got some off the field issues. It doesn't seem like he's been picked up yet. Yeah, he seems like a troubled case as well. So maybe not Ja'Kai Polite, but no, there's not really anybody that really sticks out to me. Other than him, which, I mean... this next question comes from SM. He says, what do you think of that rookie tight end in the fourth quarter? Is he still on the team? Yeah, he is. I'm forgetting his name. I said it earlier in the show. But yeah, he did very well. Big guy. Can catch the ball. And he's looked good in run blocking too. So yeah. This next question comes from Ron. He says, do you think defensive end / outside linebacker Tank Cardine makes the roster, or has Hendricks, Orchard, and Linebacker done enough to make him expendable? Apparently those players did do enough to make him expendable, because the Dolphins kept all of those players and got rid of Tank. This next question comes from Kevin. He says, Tunsil traded, so what's done is done. Here, and by the time you get to the Q&A, I'm sure you have the basics covered, but Tunsil was headed for a huge extension. If we kept him, say 20 to 25 mil against the cap next year, do you think the front office uses that to justify signing a high-profile free agent guard or tackle? Like I said, if you're going to replace him, and I guess the question is, do you think our front office uses that to just... No, I think the way they've tried to justify it is that it's an offer that you can't refuse. And it is. In a way it is, depending on your situation. If you're a team that's competing for a Super Bowl, you don't make that trade. But if you're a team that we find ourselves currently in, then you make that trade. So, I think it is... I do believe them when they say it is an offer that they can't refuse. They turned down trading him for just one first-round pick, reportedly. So, 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick, and you get a tackle in exchange, and you get a special teams player in exchange as well. Like, it's a good deal, but I think the way they're going to justify it is that it's just like they've said, it's an offer you can't refuse it. And I don't think it is, like I've said earlier in the show, I don't think it's as hard as everybody else is making it out to be to replace a tackle. This question comes from SM. He says, I'm 3 hours north of Miami and directly in the hurricane's path at this time. Where is this storm going to hit? Are you and your family safe? Yes, we're all safe. I don't know. I'm not a meteorologist. I think everybody's going to be okay, hopefully. But it is a big hurricane. And I wish you all well. And God bless you all. And hopefully you guys get through this safe. And I think we'll all be all right. This next question comes from Douglas. He says, hey, Skaggs, how do you feel if we go 8-8 and it improves our defensive special? And we have some good building blocks everywhere, but unfortunately our picks around 15 or 20 in next year's draft. I personally would love it. Yeah, of course I would love it. First of all, this would be a huge middle finger to everybody, which would be awesome. Even before Laremy was traded, everybody thought this team would suck. And, yeah, that would be awesome. It would be a huge middle finger to everybody. This next question comes from Willie. Says, do you think there's any chance we actually trade Tunsil? Yes, we did. This next question comes from T-Zone. He says, Skaggs, seeing that the Texans are going through, after drafting 2 tackles in the first round, there's no way I would trade Tunsil, not even for Clowney and 2 first-round picks. Point being, not even every draft have a Laremy Tunsil, and he's still a young player that we've already developed. Thoughts on us trading him? I listed like 6 players that have been drafted recently that have had good NFL careers that all play the same position. So, I think it's a little bit exaggerated. You just have to do a good job drafting. The Texans have done a terrible job drafting tackles. That's on them. That's not on anybody. Everybody else has done a good job, including us. So that's on them. They have a terrible, and they try to replace their GM, and they've had an issue with that for a long time now. But yeah, I think that's a Texans problem, not an everybody else's problem. This next question comes from JFG. He says, do you think that Rosen will be our franchise quarterback? If not, should we draft a guy like Shea Patterson? Definitely not Shea Patterson. But yeah, I do believe Josh will be. And I really do believe that. This next question comes from Alpha. He says, Skaggs, do you agree with Fitzpatrick starting? No, I don't. This next question comes from Jagpack. He asks, I get that we want plenty of ammo in the draft, but what is a good franchise quarterback without a left tackle protecting him? Yeah, that got an extra first-round pick the next 2 drafts, but you never know how first-rounders will play out. Case in point, Deion Jordan, DP, and Charles Harris. You're absolutely right. First of all, let's defend Chris Greer here. He didn't draft Deion Jordan or Devontae Parker. Charles Harris he did draft, but that was Adam Gase's idea, not his. So I'm not going to, he's done a good job thus far. What I will say is, like I said, it's easier to replace a tackle than everybody is making it out to be. It is. And especially if you have faith in your GM, which I do. So, with all the cap space we have, with all the free agents that are coming up, with all the, potential draft picks coming up, if the Dolphins don't fix it, they're just incompetent. That's all I got to say about that. This next question comes from Ahmed or what do I want to say here? I don't even know. I'm sorry. It's late. He asks, or I'm trying to say the other one. I don't know why I can't say it. Is it wise now to spend? I'm trying to say. I can't say it. Anyway, is it wise now to spend the first 2? I just can't say the name for some reason. So it's like, where do you get your tongue to? I don't know. Anyway, the point. I apologize to you. I'm sorry. I'm dumb. The first 2-round pick. Let's start the question over. He asks, is it wise to spend the first 2 picks on a defensive end and offensive line prospects in 2020 to wait for Trevor Lawrence in 2021? What would the Dolphins' win-loss record be this season? Is the idea of tanking back on the table? Do you foresee a Fitzmagic appearance this year? If not, how long do you Rosen take the reins? Okay, so I don't like the whole Trevor Lawrence thing. I never have. He looks like a good quarterback, but you never really know. And there's 2 pretty dang good ones coming up in this draft, so I don't agree with waiting that long for a quarterback. Plus, I feel like Rosen still deserves a fair handshake. Well, you definitely will see Fitzpatrick week 1. I'm trying to hurry up. God, I can't say your name. Sorry, dude. So I hope I answer your question right, but I'm trying to get as many questions in as possible because the show's almost over. Mark, this next question comes from Mark. He says, "What do you think of the moves we made today?" I can't really give you an opinion on the Laremy Tunsil trade yet. I feel like long term it could potentially be amazing, but that's depending on what the Dolphins do with those opportunities. And this next question comes from Will. He says, "I can't believe they pulled off this power move. This comes from Will. It really just looks like they did this trade to prove a point. Could you help the fan base make sense of this monumental trade?" I mean, long term, that's what it is. That's what this says. That's what this trade says. Is just long term, and that's the best way I can make sense of it. The one thing I will say, Stephen Ross has to be patient, because this regime made that decision. He has to let them make the decisions going forward, because that's what this decision relies on. Is you have to be patient. So, it sucks to say that. It hurts me as well, and that's why that's why I was very upset about it initially. Is just like, how are we gonna win games now? It's gonna be very difficult, but long term, the future is bright if they nail it. The Raiders messed up, I believe, at least but they're the Raiders, and the only teams to really pull off this kind of and pulled off right, because there's more examples of it not going right than it going right, I would say, are the Browns and the Cowboys of yesteryear, and I guess you probably could throw the Colts in there too, recently. I'm trying to think of other ones that there aren't really any, but yeah, so it's not a common thing though, I would say, especially in NFL history with something like this happening. It's more of a common thing recently, I would say, with, giving up assets for a lot of first-round picks. Back then, trades like this rarely ever happened. So, so... Oh, there we go. There's an ad. It's hard to compare this to anything other than the recent stuff that has recently happened. This next question comes from Take Me Out. He says, coming into this year's draft, with some of my previous comments, that I was a huge proponent of drafting Daniel Jones, feeling that he was far and away better than the best quarterback in this draft. Although I love Rosen, it could be done all over again. Would you have preferred to draft Jones and then Winovich in the second round because word was who the Finns were targeting? Or would you have stayed with Wilkins and Rosen? Absolutely love your channel, by the way. I feel that Kyler Murray is going to be a one-contract wonder. It's a lot. I'm trying to answer this quick as possible. No, I think the Daniel Jones hype is a little too early. Number 2, I love Chase Winovich. I wanted to draft him last year. Unfortunately, it didn't happen because of all the trade. You got to remember, guys, people traded in front of us. I mean, we probably would have taken Cody Ford or Greg Little or Chase Winovich, but the draft board just didn't fall that way. I thought the Dolphins did what they could with the decision, or with the position that they were in, and I thought they came out pretty good. Kyler Murray, I felt like, has looked good in preseason so far. It's just that team, who knows what's going to happen with it. This next question comes from Mark. He says, do you think the front office is planning to go quarterback in round 1 in next year's draft? I need to look into offensive line prospects now as well. What do you know about offensive linemen coming out of college next year? I know Oklahoma's got a lot of good offensive linemen. Other than that, I would have to look at some of the Big Ten guys. I really am a little bit misinformed as well. But, yeah, I know those... Well, you should look at those players first. So I think that's going to be it. Yeah. Well, I'll save... I think we almost got through all of them. So I might save the last of the questions. Let me see if I can't shout out every... No. Gotta end the show here, guys. Gotta go, but... that is going to be it, guys. That is your show for this week. A lot of things to take in. Let me know what your opinions are down in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.